Sarah had always trusted her husband completely. After 12 years of marriage, she thought she knew everything about Michael's business trips, his late-night phone calls, and his sudden need for privacy. But that Thursday evening changed everything when she found herself standing in the shadows of their bedroom doorway, watching him pack his suitcase with unusual care. Michael worked as a regional manager for a construction company, or at least that's what Sarah had believed. His job required travel, sometimes for weeks at a time, visiting project sites across 3 states. She had never questioned the extra clothes he packed, the expensive cologne he'd started wearing, or the way his phone was always face down on the table during dinner. The first real sign something was wrong came 3 months earlier when Sarah noticed charges on their credit card statement. Expensive restaurants in cities where Michael claimed he was staying in budget hotels. Jewelry purchases she'd never received. When she asked about them, Michael's explanation was smooth and believable. "Client dinners," he'd said. "And the jewelry? That was for you, honey. Your anniversary gift I've been hiding." But no anniversary gift ever appeared. That evening, Sarah watched from the hallway as Michael carefully folded silk shirts she'd never seen before. His phone buzzed constantly, and each time he read a message, his face lit up with an expression she hadn't seen directed at her in years. When he stepped into the bathroom, Sarah quickly moved to his dresser and opened the drawer he'd been pulling clothes from. Hidden beneath his usual work shirts was a collection of items that made her stomach drop. Love letters written in feminine handwriting, signed with hearts and "Forever yours, Diana." Photos of Michael with a woman Sarah didn't recognize, taken in what looked like an expensive hotel room. The woman was younger, maybe early 30s, with long, dark hair and a smile that suggested intimacy. Sarah's hands trembled as she read one of the letters. Diana wrote about their beautiful arrangement and how grateful she was for everything Michael provided. She mentioned the apartment he'd rented for her, the car payments he covered, and how she couldn't wait for their weekend together in Miami. The letter was dated just 2 weeks ago. The bathroom door handle turned, and Sarah quickly closed the drawer and slipped back into the hallway. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure Michael would hear it. When he emerged, he was whistling softly, already reaching for his phone to send another text. "Leaving early tomorrow?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice normal as she stepped into the room. Michael looked up, startled. "Yes. Big meeting in Atlanta. Might be gone until Sunday." He kissed her cheek, but Sarah noticed he avoided her eyes. "You know how these client presentations go." That night, Sarah lay awake staring at the ceiling while Michael slept peacefully beside her. Everything made sense now. The mysterious phone calls he took in the garage, claiming they were work-related. The way he'd started working out and buying new clothes, saying he wanted to look professional for important clients. The gradual distance that had grown between them over the past year. The next morning, after Michael left for his business trip, Sarah called in sick to her job at the local library. She needed time to think, to process what she'd discovered. She made coffee and sat at their kitchen table, staring at the framed photo of their wedding day. They looked so happy, so sure of their future together. Sarah had met Michael when she was 25, working as a secretary at a law firm. He was confident, ambitious, and made her laugh in ways no one else could. They'd built what she thought was a solid life together. They'd tried for children but couldn't conceive, and Michael had seemed okay with it just being the two of them. Now she wondered if he'd found someone else to share the family dreams they couldn't fulfill together. By afternoon, Sarah had made a decision. She drove to Michael's office, something she rarely did. His secretary, Janet, greeted her warmly. "Oh, Sarah. How nice to see you. I'm afraid Michael's not here, though. He left for that big project in Texas yesterday." Texas, not Atlanta. Sarah forced a smile. "Of course I forgot. Texas, not Atlanta. My mistake." Janet looked confused but nodded politely. "Yes, the Dallas project. He mentioned it might take most of the week." Sarah thanked Janet and left, her suspicions now confirmed. Michael had lied about where he was going, which meant he was likely with Diana instead of on any business trip. She drove home slowly, her mind racing with plans. That evening, Sarah opened Michael's laptop. She'd never snooped before, but desperate times called for desperate measures. It didn't take long to find what she was looking for. Email exchanges with Diana, hotel reservations made with Michael's credit card, and travel confirmations to Miami, not Texas or Atlanta. Diana Reeves. Sarah now had a full name. A quick internet search revealed Diana's social media profiles. She was 32, worked as an interior designer, and based on her photos, lived a lifestyle well beyond what an interior designer's salary could typically support. Photos showed expensive dinners, designer clothes, and weekend trips to luxury resorts. As Sarah scrolled through Diana's photos, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. In several recent pictures, Diana was wearing jewelry that looked identical to pieces Sarah had always admired in store windows, but could never afford on their budget. Pieces that Michael had apparently been buying, just not for his wife. Sarah closed the laptop and sat in the quiet house, finally understanding the full scope of Michael's betrayal. He wasn't just having an affair. He was supporting another woman's entire lifestyle while telling Sarah they needed to be careful with money. He'd become someone's sugar daddy while his own wife clipped coupons and worried about their mortgage payments. The worst part wasn't just the cheating or even the financial betrayal. It was realizing that for months, maybe years, Michael had been living a double life with apparent ease. Every kiss goodbye, every I love you, every shared moment had been tainted by his secret relationship. Sarah knew she had to confront him, but she also knew she needed proof he couldn't deny or explain away. Tomorrow she would start gathering evidence. She would find out exactly how long this had been going on, how much money he'd spent on Diana, and what other lies he'd told. But first, she needed to prepare herself for the conversation that would either save their marriage or end it forever. Sarah spent the next 3 days becoming a detective in her own life. While Michael was presumably in Miami with Diana, Sarah methodically uncovered the extent of his deception. She started with their joint bank account, printing out statements from the past 2 years and highlighting every suspicious transaction. The pattern was clear once she knew what to look for. Every month, Michael withdrew large amounts of cash, always on days when he claimed to be traveling for work. The timing matched perfectly with the dates in Diana's letters: restaurant charges, hotel bookings, and shopping sprees that Sarah had never questioned because she trusted her husband completely. Sarah's sister Jennifer came over on Wednesday evening, bringing wine and Chinese takeout. Jennifer had always been suspicious of Michael's sudden lifestyle changes, but had kept her opinions to herself out of respect for Sarah's marriage. "I should have said something sooner," Jennifer admitted, as Sarah showed her the evidence she'd collected. "Last month, I saw Michael at that new expensive steakhouse downtown. He was with a woman, and they weren't discussing business. They were holding hands across the table." Sarah felt sick. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I hoped I was wrong. And honestly, I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like I was causing trouble." Jennifer squeezed her sister's hand. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I really thought maybe he was planning some surprise for you." That night, Sarah made a decision that surprised even herself. She called Diana's apartment, the number she'd found in Michael's hidden emails. A woman answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful and relaxed. "Hello? Is this Diana Reeves?" Sarah's voice was steadier than she'd expected. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Sarah Chen. I believe you know my husband, Michael." The silence on the other end lasted so long that Sarah wondered if Diana had hung up. Finally, Diana spoke, her voice much quieter. "Sarah, Yes, I know Michael. I think we need to talk." They agreed to meet the next day at a coffee shop across town, somewhere neither of them was likely to be recognized. Sarah couldn't sleep that night, alternating between anger at Michael and strange curiosity about the woman who had unknowingly helped destroy her marriage. Diana was already sitting at a corner table when Sarah arrived, nervously stirring a latte she clearly hadn't touched. She was prettier in person than in photos, but Sarah was surprised to see she looked tired and worried rather than confident. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Sarah said, sitting down across from her. Diana nodded, avoiding eye contact. "I need you to know. I didn't know about you at first. Michael told me he was divorced." "When did you find out he was married?" "About 6 months ago. I saw his wedding ring in his jacket pocket when I was hanging it up." Diana's voice was barely above a whisper. "When I confronted him, he said you two were separated but still living together for financial reasons. He said the divorce papers were being filed." Sarah felt a mix of anger and pity. Michael had lied to both of them, but in different ways. "How long have you been seeing him?" "Almost 2 years." Diana finally looked up, and Sarah could see tears in her eyes. "I thought I was in love with him. I thought he loved me too." "Did you know he was supporting you with money that should have been going to our household expenses? That I've been worrying about paying bills while he was buying you jewelry and paying your rent?" Diana's face went pale. "Your household expenses? He told me he made plenty of money, that he was successful and could afford to help me. He said taking care of me made him happy." For the next hour, the two women compared stories. Sarah learned that Michael had been telling Diana elaborate lies about his life, his job, even his age. He'd shaved 5 years off and claimed to be a senior executive rather than a regional manager. Diana discovered that many of the romantic getaways she'd thought were spontaneous were actually planned around Michael's lies to Sarah about business trips. "He has a whole different personality with you," Sarah realized. "More adventurous, more generous, more romantic. And with you, he probably seems stable and dependable," Diana replied sadly. "He's been playing 2 completely different roles." Diana revealed something that shocked Sarah even more. "He's been talking about leaving you. He said once his finances were more settled, he was going to file for divorce and we could be together openly." Sarah felt her world shift again. Michael hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been planning to end their marriage while still lying to his mistress about his intentions and timeline. "What are you going to do?" Diana asked. "I don't know yet. What about you?" "I need to end this. Regardless of what happens between you and Michael, I can't be part of this anymore. I thought I was in a relationship with an available man who cared about me. Finding out he's been lying to his wife about everything, including me, makes me feel sick." The two women exchanged phone numbers, agreeing to stay in contact. Sarah found herself surprisingly grateful for Diana's honesty and willingness to meet. It helped her understand that Michael was the only real villain in this situation. That afternoon, Sarah visited a lawyer recommended by Jennifer. Attorney Patricia Holmes was a woman in her 50s who specialized in divorce cases involving financial deception. "What you're describing is fairly common," Patricia explained after reviewing Sarah's documentation. "The secret accounts, the lying about business trips, the financial support of another woman. You have good evidence for a strong case." Sarah learned about her rights, the likely division of assets, and the process for filing divorce papers, but she also learned something that surprised her. "You don't have to make any decisions today," Patricia said. "Some couples work through infidelity, though it requires complete honesty and commitment from both partners. After 2 years of elaborate lies, it's rare, but not impossible. The question is whether Michael is willing to end all contact with Diana, be completely transparent about finances, and commit to rebuilding trust, and whether you're willing to try, which is equally important." That evening, Sarah sat in her living room surrounded by evidence of her husband's betrayal. Bank statements, printed emails, Diana's letters, photos, and hotel receipts. She had enough proof to end their marriage tomorrow if she chose to. But she also thought about 12 years of shared life, their first apartment, the way Michael used to bring her coffee in bed every Sunday morning. Their plans for growing old together. Were those memories worth fighting for, or had they already been destroyed by his choices? Michael was due home the next day from his fake business trip to Texas. Sarah had to decide whether to confront him immediately or continue gathering evidence. She also had to decide what outcome she actually wanted. Did she want to save their marriage, or was she just afraid of starting over at 37? Sarah called Jennifer one more time that night. "What would you do?" "I don't know, honey. But I do know that whatever you decide, you're stronger than you think. You've handled this investigation like a pro. You'll handle whatever comes next, too." As Sarah finally went to bed, she realized that discovering Michael's affair had revealed something important about herself. She was more capable, more resilient, and more decisive than she'd ever known. Whether she chose to fight for her marriage or end it, she would be okay. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation she'd been dreading and preparing for. Michael would walk through their front door expecting everything to be normal, but Sarah would be ready with questions he couldn't lie his way out of answering. Michael walked through the front door at exactly 6:30 on Friday evening, carrying his suitcase and wearing the satisfied expression of a man who believed his secrets were safe. Sarah was waiting in the living room, having spent the day arranging all her evidence on the coffee table like a prosecutor preparing for trial. "Hey, honey," Michael called out, setting down his bag and loosening his tie. "How was your week?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. She watched him go through his usual routine, checking mail, kissing her cheek absently, and reaching for his phone to check messages. Everything about his behavior was so normal, so practiced, that she wondered how many times he'd performed this same act after spending days with Diana. "My week was interesting," Sarah finally said. "I learned some things." Michael looked up from his phone, perhaps catching something unusual in her tone. "Oh, like what?" "I learned that you were never in Texas this week. I learned about Diana Reeves. I learned about the apartment you rent for her, the jewelry you buy her, and the 2 years of lies you've been telling both of us." The color drained from Michael's face so quickly that Sarah thought he might faint. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor. For a long moment, neither of them moved. "Sarah, I can explain—" "No." Sarah's voice was firmer than she'd ever heard it. "You can't explain. You can confess, you can apologize, you can beg, but you can't explain away 2 years of calculated deception." Michael moved toward her, but Sarah stood up and stepped back. "Don't. Just sit down and listen." He sat heavily in the armchair across from her, his eyes fixed on the pile of evidence spread across the coffee table. Bank statements, printed emails, photos, hotel receipts, and Diana's letters formed an undeniable mountain of his betrayal. "How long have you known?" Michael's voice was barely audible. "Since Monday. I've spent this week learning exactly who you really are." Sarah picked up one of Diana's letters. "Did you know she thought you were divorced? Did you know she was planning to end things with you anyway once she learned the truth about us?" Michael's head snapped up. "You talked to her?" "I did. Diana and I had a very enlightening conversation. She's not the villain here, Michael. You are. You lied to her almost as much as you lied to me." For the next hour, Sarah methodically went through everything she'd discovered. The financial betrayal, the fake business trips, the elaborate stories he'd told Diana about his life, the plans he'd apparently been making to leave their marriage. Michael tried several times to interrupt, to offer explanations or justifications, but Sarah wouldn't let him. "You've had 2 years to lie," she said. "Tonight you're going to listen to the truth." When Sarah finished, the room was completely silent except for the sound of the clock ticking on the mantel. Michael sat slumped in his chair, all pretense gone. I never meant for it to get this complicated, he finally said. What did you mean for it to get? Simple? Just a little betrayal of everything we promised each other? I felt trapped, Michael said, his voice gaining strength. We've been together for 12 years, Sarah. Sometimes I felt like I was disappearing, like I was just going through the motions of a life I didn't choose anymore. Sarah felt anger flare in her chest. So you chose to handle that feeling by creating a completely separate life with another woman? By spending our money on her while I worried about our mortgage payments? Diana made me feel alive again, young, important. Michael looked directly at Sarah for the first time since she'd confronted him. With her, I could be someone different, someone more exciting. And what am I in this scenario? The boring wife you were stuck with? Michael didn't answer, which was answer enough. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at their quiet neighborhood where other couples were probably having normal Friday evening conversations about weekend plans or what to watch on television. I talked to a lawyer, she said without turning around. Sarah, please. I know I messed up, but we can work through this. I'll end things with Diana. I'll be completely honest going forward. Sarah turned back to face him. You'll end things with Diana? You mean the relationship you told her you were planning to leave me for? Michael's face flushed. I never actually planned to leave you. That was just talk. Fantasy. So you were lying to her about leaving me, just like you were lying to me about her existence. Do you even know when you're telling the truth anymore? Michael stood up and moved toward her again. I love you, Sarah. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but our marriage, our life together, that's real. Diana was just an escape. An escape that cost us thousands of dollars and 2 years of my life believing in a marriage that didn't actually exist. It did exist. It does exist. Sarah shook her head. No, Michael. What existed was my marriage to a man I thought I knew. Your marriage was to a woman you were planning to leave once your finances were more settled. We weren't even in the same relationship. They stood facing each other across their living room, 12 years of shared life hanging in the balance. Sarah could see that Michael was genuinely panicked, perhaps realizing for the first time that his actions had consequences he hadn't anticipated. What do you want me to do? He asked. Tell me how to fix this. Sarah walked back to the coffee table and picked up the divorce papers Patricia had prepared just in case. She didn't hand them to Michael, but she held them where he could see them. I want you to leave tonight, she said. I want you to stay somewhere else while I decide whether our marriage is worth saving or if it's already been destroyed beyond repair. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. A hotel, your brother's house, Diana's apartment for all I know. That's your problem to solve. Michael stared at the papers in her hand. You're really going to divorce me? I don't know yet. But I know I can't share this house with you while I figure it out. I need space to think without you here trying to convince me that 2 years of betrayal was just a mistake or a phase. Michael packed another suitcase, this time with Sarah watching every move. There were no more hidden silk shirts or secret letters to carefully arrange. Just a man gathering clothes while his wife stood guard, making sure he took everything he needed for an extended absence. At the front door, Michael turned back one more time. I really do love you, Sarah. I know you don't believe me right now, but I do. Sarah looked at the man she'd married, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in years. I believe you love me in whatever way you're capable of loving someone, but I don't think that's enough anymore. After Michael left, Sarah sat alone in their house, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal and the paperwork for ending their marriage. She felt empty, but also oddly relieved. The uncertainty was over. The suspicions, the questions, the nagging feeling that something was wrong had all been resolved. Her phone rang. It was Diana. I saw Michael today, Diana said without preamble. He came to my apartment to tell me it was over between us. He said you'd found out and he was going to try to save his marriage. How do you feel about that? Honestly? Relieved, and hurt, and confused. Diana paused. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I do know I'm not the same woman I was a week ago. Finding out about Michael's other life taught me I'm stronger than I thought I was. For what it's worth, Diana said, I think you deserve better than what he gave either of us. After they hung up, Sarah cleaned up all the evidence from the coffee table and put it in a folder marked Evidence. She might need it for divorce proceedings, or she might decide to try counseling with Michael if he was genuinely willing to change. But for tonight, she was alone in her house for the first time in 12 years, and instead of feeling lonely, she felt powerful. She had confronted the truth, taken control of her situation, and made decisions based on what she needed rather than what was easiest. Whatever happened next, Sarah knew she would handle it. She'd already proven to herself that she was capable of far more than she'd ever imagined. The woman who had discovered her husband's affair and methodically built a case against him was not the same woman who had blindly trusted him for 12 years. Sarah Chen was discovering who she really was, and she liked what she found.